Welcome, dear viewers, to Turkish Spotlight Secrets, the corner of the internet where we drift past headlines and listen for the heartbeat underneath them. Before we pull back the curtain on today's quiet storm, make sure you're subscribed, throw us a like, and consider joining to keep this community thriving. Now, breathe in with me and step into Paris, the city that swallows whispers and returns them as courage. Two names have brushed past the noise and found a rhythm again. Akın and Ebru. What began as a murmur has become a melody that's hard to ignore. Paris has a way of wrapping truth in soft light. The streets know how to hold a secret without suffocating it. Its bridges collect reflections, its cafes preserve glances that the world is too distracted to read. Within that hush, Akın and Ebru were seen side by side. Not as co-stars angling for attention, not as acquaintances obliged to perform, but as two people who seemed to remember the comfort of moving through the world at the same pace. This wasn't a random collision, nor the ghost of a past chapter flipping open on its own. Those who crossed their path described an ease that can't be rehearsed. Their smiles moved the way real feelings do, unrushed, unedited. Their steps matched as if their bodies had agreed on a common tempo long before their minds did. When the first sliver of images found its way online, it didn't feel like a flashy scoop or a manufactured surprise. It felt like watching dormant embers catch a breath of oxygen. A close friend, who asked not to be named, someone who has observed the two without adding sparkles to the tale, insisted this trip wasn't a stunt. Paris, the confidant said, has always been theirs. A sanctuary where time slows down enough to let memory sit without turning into nostalgia. In that private comfort, Akın, usually careful with words, gave voice to a single, steady thought: Ebru, we need a conversation that exists only between us. Not dramatic, not grandiose, but there was a door quietly unlocking behind those syllables, a space being swept clean so something honest could finally stand there. Their first stop wasn't a marquee restaurant or a designer boutique. It was a tiny cafe near the riverbank, the kind of place whose windows fog into soft halos. At first, no one paid much attention. They looked like two people simply catching up. But minutes stretched into an hour, then longer. A server, who didn't recognize them until she glanced at her phone later, remembered the particular cadence of their table, the way they laughed carefully, the long breath between sentences, and the lack of performance in their faces. It was as if they were piecing together a language they once spoke fluently, rediscovering vocabulary that had never truly left them. Then, the moment that loosened the internet's grip on restraint. It wasn't a kiss. It wasn't staged. It was a hand reaching for another and finding it without hesitation. Ebru's fingers slipped into Akın's, and he didn't check who might be watching. He didn't tidy the gesture or tuck it into his pocket. He just let it be. A tourist with an unsteady phone caught the moment, and over the gentle hum of the city, a small sentence floated out. Akın said, almost absently, "Let them think what they want. If you're with me, the rest fades away." That brief honesty, barely louder than the traffic, rippled into timelines and feeds until it became impossible to avoid. There were no press releases, no sudden statements. Instead, they wrote to each other in images. Ebru shared a photograph of the Parisian sky rinsed in gold at dusk, captioned with a simple admission: sometimes the heart remembers the path home. A little later, Akın posted a black and white shot of the Eiffel Tower, stark and hopeful, with the caption, "Life offers another door if you're brave enough to knock." It didn't read like promotion. It felt like verses exchanged in daylight, a conversation carried by captions rather than interviews. In the days that followed, witnesses said the pair drifted through the Louvre with the patience of people touching something fragile. They paused longer than most, as if moving too quickly might shatter what they were tending to. One evening, at a theater glowing in the hush before the curtain fell, Ebru let her head rest on Akın's shoulder. There was nothing calculated in it. It seemed like the only response to a feeling that had nowhere else to go. Later, at a small bistro in the Marais, a waiter noticed their hands linked across the table, not to be seen, not to pose, just to stay. No nervous giggles. No glances at phones. Just two hands deciding that distance would not be the third guest at their meal. A few mornings after, Ebru stepped out of a flower shop with peonies tucked into her arms, unremarkable if you don't know their history. But those close to them do. Peonies are the soft spot Akın rarely mentions. A fan who recognized her from a respectful distance asked gently if she felt happy. Ebru's reply had none of the froth the industry often thrives on. "I feel calm," she said. And that's a good beginning. Calm is a choice. Calm doesn't flare for cameras. Calm means someone is thinking about what comes next. Online, emotion detectives did what they do best. They noticed that the two began following each other again. They saw an old photo from last year suddenly gain a new like from Akın's account. They pointed out that both of them posted images threaded with a delicate star symbol, a barely there motif that some claimed was like Morse code for anyone looking closely enough. Whether coincidence or choreography, those breadcrumbs painted a trail that felt private yet shared, purposeful yet unspoken. A journalist swore they spotted the pair in a tiny bookstore along the river. No flashy coffee table volumes. No limited edition signatures. Akın gravitated toward poetry. He read a few lines under his breath, then turned to Ebru with the quiet conviction of someone choosing simplicity over spectacle. "If we begin," he said, "let's begin from the first page. Not where it broke. Not halfway. Clean." The reporter said. Ebru's face changed in a heartbeat, the first flicker of surprise falling away to reveal something steadier, a fragile bravery settling in. Of course, not everyone cheered. There were voices reminding anyone who would listen that reconciliation isn't a postcard stamped in a romantic city. That it takes more than moonlit photos and soft captions to rebuild a home. While critics weighed logistics and timing and all the practical stones people love to stack, others saw a different shift, a willingness to put down old armor. Fans wrote about how sometimes you need to lose well in order to love better. They praised the courage it takes to return without begging the past to pretend it never happened. The rumor mill kept turning. Some said the pair extended their stay beyond the original plan, stealing extra mornings and adding unhurried nights. Others whispered about a magazine spread in the works, images set against Parisian landmarks with a narrative of renewal threaded through the frames. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's a dream the internet wants to will into reality. Either way, something moved. Something decided that fear would not be the only author of this chapter. So what happens when they're back on familiar streets? Do they step onto a premiere carpet side by side, allowing cameras to stitch together what words won't? Do they sit down for an interview and trade vulnerability for transparency, or do they choose the quiet path, soft closeness, meaningful glances, a language that refuses to be translated into headlines? Perhaps they'll let photographs do the speaking. Perhaps captions will continue carrying the weight, dropping hints rather than proclamations. Paris didn't turn their story into a circus. It gave them perspective. A mirror in which they could see themselves without the noise of expectations. In that reflection, calm wasn't a luxury, it was a deliberate act. Maybe this trip is the start of something new. Maybe it's a lesson dressed as a beginning. Maybe it's both. An echo learning how to become a voice. For two actors who built careers on timing and intensity, this felt like a choice to trust the softer notes. In a world that rewards volume, they reached for tone. Those close to the situation say that a plan took shape in the spaces between outings and side streets. To speak privately before they spoke publicly. To draw lines that wouldn't bend under the weight of curiosity. To prioritize the ordinary. The morning coffees, the small shop conversations, the unremarkable walks over bridges that look different depending on the sky. One afternoon, seated on a bench watching tour boats drift along the river, Ebru took a breath and said, "If we do this, we do it with patience." Akın nodded, that steadiness he's known for anchoring the moment. "Then we let patience be our headline," he answered. No drama. No promises carved in stone. Just a commitment to show up. Later that week, an eyewitness described a moment only the observant would catch. The pair were crossing a quiet street, and traffic paused. Instead of hurrying, they stopped to let a cyclist pass. Ebru squeezed his hand once, quick and certain, and he smiled without turning. It was nothing at all and everything important, a small testament that the small things had returned to matter. The city didn't roar. It approved, the way Paris approves. By keeping their secret safe long enough for them to decide who should hear it. Back online, comments multiplied. Some fans wrote essays about forgiveness. Others asked for caution, not out of doubt but out of care, warning that the public's appetite can be reckless. Through it all, the two remained measured. No live sessions full of revelations. No dramatic unfollows or pointed quotes. Just a steady stream of images, muted colors, and daylight, the same star symbol tucked like a signature in the corner. If you were paying attention, it was enough. Will they move forward as a team when the next project calls? Will they choose the same scripts, stand on the same stages, risk the same reviews? Or will they protect what's forming by keeping work and heart from blending too quickly? We don't know yet. We're not supposed to. What's clear is that the weight on their shoulders looks lighter. Their posture, the way they carry themselves through frames and sidewalks, suggests a relief that only truth grants, even the kind of truth still learning how to speak out loud. Maybe that's the lesson tucked inside this trip, that fashioning a future isn't about rewriting the past, but about reading it carefully and deciding which margins to keep. For now, all signs point to a gentle rebuild. No rush, no scoreboard, just two people moving in the same direction with deliberately slow steps. And if you ask the City of Secrets what it witnessed, it would probably shrug and say, two people choosing to listen. Before we close today's chapter here on Turkish Spotlight Secrets, tell us what you think. Are Akın Akinozu and Ebru Şahin ready to build again, brick by patient brick? Are second chances stronger when they're given room to breathe? Your thoughts shape the pulse of this space, so leave a comment below. If you felt the quiet thunder of this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the join button for extra support and exclusive content. Stay tuned, because the whispers always reveal their truth when the city grows calm, and because sometimes the softest moments are the ones that change everything.